Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our second knockouts here at the Nationals Junior category and our motion of dissection reads, incorporating traditional leadership structures into modern democratic governance can enhance legitimacy and participation in Africa. I read the motion again, incorporating traditional leadership structures into modern democratic governance can enhance legitimacy and participation in Africa. Proposing and opposing the motion we have Moi Girls, Nyabohanse and Nairobi School. All the best to both teams on stage. I'll be your host for today, Hamza Hussein. With that said, first speaker, team proposition, you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Africa. From the border of Kenya and Tanzania, the only girls' national school in Migori County, the only school with the most unique name in the room. Can you guess the name? That's an assignment. I have a message from the President of Tanzania, Mama Africa, Honorable Samia Suluhu. She sent us here to strongly propose the motion that states, incorporating traditional leadership structures into the modern democratic governance can enhance legitimacy and participation in Africa. With my teacher of English in the room, Madam Deputy, allow me to break down the terms incorporating. This is including something so that it forms part of something, including traditional leadership structures so that it forms part of modern democratic governance. Traditional leadership, it is leadership that involves the beliefs, customs, and the way of life of a group of people. Structures, way in which part of something are connected together. Legitimacy, the act of being legal because you meet the specific requirements of the law. Democratic governance, finally, building open, responsive, and accountable institutions and processes that serve the needs and preferences of people. A quote from Robin Sharma, he said, real leadership is about transforming limitations into possibilities. Maybe to brush through the points, the first point is trust and legitimacy. We have policy implementation. We have it increases participation. A research from ChatGPT states that traditional leaders often hold significant influence and are trusted more by their people than they trust the people in the modern governance, the people at the top. If you look at Ghana, 69% in response trust traditional leaders compared to 58% in the same country who trust the modern leaders. That is enough to start making my opponent's side to please try to support us. We have policy implementation. If we involve traditional leaders into the modern government, they will be able to explain the policies that will be implemented as compared to when the modern government just tries to implement a policy without explaining whatever it is that is going to help a country with or a particular region with. The citizens will be having troubles in understanding whatever it is. We have Botswana. If you look at the public health companies and educational programs, they have succeeded through the influence of traditional leaders. So if we incorporate traditional leaders' structures into the modern democratic governance, it enhances legitimacy and participation in Africa. I rest my case. Thank you.
I have seen the fall of the Nazi, the collapse of the Nava-Antonine dynasty, the failure of insurgents, but I have never seen a toss of such a magnitude. So, let me stratify, clarify, identify, crown, and promulgate our losers. Long live side proposition. Or, if you may like, viva la proposition. I would like to strongly establish that we oppose the motion stating incorporation of traditional leadership structures into modern democratic structures will enhance legitimacy and participation in Africa. I agree with the definition of terms, but I have a few questions for her. Question. Modern problems, we are always taught in school that modern problems require modern methods and solutions to solve them. But if we bring back methods that have been used and failed before, what are we doing? Another question. There are reasons they were removed, but you're not giving me. We will be giving you the reasons, and we will want you to answer our questions why they were removed. And lastly, I'd like to tell you something. Most traditional leadership structures were used most traditional structures used in traditional times had small kingdoms ranging to about 1,000 acres of land, a population of 50,000 people. But right now, we have a country of 47 million people who require to be represented. Do you really tell me that traditional leadership will actually represent all these people? Another thing I'd like to start, my first substance of argument will be they will lead to corruption. What do I mean by corruption? One of the forms of corruption evident in most traditional structures is nepotism. This has plagued a lot of countries, a lot of traditional leadership structures. So, I'll give you an example of Nigeria. Nigeria uses a traditional leadership structures where our local councils act as the main way of representing the people. But these traditional leadership structures lack accountability mechanisms that are present in modern democratic governance, leading to conflicts and ineffective governance in some regions. Again, she gave us the example of Ghana, saying that most people trust in those leaders. But you know something, there is a constant power struggle in Ghana where modern leaders are actually fighting against traditional leaders over power and authority. So, are you telling me a structure that brings problems to us is good for us? My last substance of argument will be diversity of systems. I am Kikuyu. There's a Meru here, there's a Somali, but how will we choose which system to adopt? If we choose all these systems and say, we'll take this, this, and this, it will lead to dilution of the principles of democracy that are incorporated in modern democratic systems, or it will undermine traditional practices. I see traditional leadership structures as passed by time and not usable as of this time. Thank you. I have been Victor Amarema, representing the Nairobi School.
I'm Brigita Akinyi from the Nyabohanse Girls. Madam Deputy, you'll allow me to say this. You didn't understand the motion. The motion states that including the traditional leadership including the traditional leadership structure into the modern democratic governance can enhance legitimacy and participation in Africa. My colleague said that Botswana is proceeding. Why? This is because they have included the traditional leadership into the modern governance so that they can proceed. When you look at the trust and legitimacy as the first point, traditional leaders often hold significant influence and trust by their communities. For example, 69% of respondents of Ghana trusted traditional leaders compared to 58% who trusted elected leaders. So when you're saying we should include the traditional leaders structure into the modern governance of now, we'll actually succeed. Because you see the structure of which they are ruling them, the structure of which they are using to rule, if it is included into the governance, it will help the countries to move. And that's why Ghana and Botswana are prospering. Policy implementation. As I have just said, I've said that Ghana, 69% of it trust traditional leaders, and 58% trust the elected leaders. Why? Let's say we include the traditional leadership structure into the modern governance. You'll see a larger percentage will have to believe what the traditional leaders are implementing. When, let's say, for example, the modern governance or the modern leaders have implemented a rule or a law. So the traditional leaders will have to implement the policy to the people. And that's why we're saying that traditional leadership should be brought back, should be included into the modern structure. I want to, just allow me to do this. You'll never reach your destination if you stop throwing stones at every barking dogs. So what I'm trying to say is that you just agree with me that we should actually put the traditional structure into the modern structure for us to prosper. To my third point, conflict resolution. If we include the traditional structure into the modern governance, you'll see most of the traditional leaders will try to bring people together, people from different communities, and a larger percentage will actually agree with the traditional leaders. For example, in Uganda, traditional leaders resolve 94% of all land disputes in Acholi. So, agree with me and allow me to convince you and join hands with me in saying that incorporating traditional leadership structure into modern democratic governance can enhance legitimacy and participation in Africa. Thank you.
Standing before here today is Muhammad Amin Ali, here to oppose the motion which states that incorporating traditional leadership structures into modern democratic governance can enhance legitimacy and participation in Africa. Now, democracy and governance is practiced all over the world and in its many different forms. It could be direct or indirect, monarchical, or even dictatorial. So what happens when you take a modern democratic system of governance that has been independent of traditional aspects, such as leadership structures, and you begin to incorporate them? First of all, it will not appeal to every single member or in the nation. What do I mean by this? Traditional leadership structures may not appeal to every citizen who does not belong to the community in which these structures were adopted from. Therefore, it can bring about widespread dissatisfaction among members in a nation. Therefore, it can lead to riots and revolts. We all know of the Gen Z revolts that are happening right now in our country. They are workers' revolts. Why would you want to add tribal revolts into them? Because that is exactly what you will get. There are many communities in this nation. There are Luos, and I'm using Kenya as an example. There are Luos, there are Kambas, there are Kikuyus, there's me, there's Somali. How do you honestly expect for all of us to accept these traditional aspects when we do not belong to these communities in which they were got from? Next, they were dictatorial in nature, especially when it came to inheritance. Traditional leadership structures were dictatorial in a manner since the king's word or the chief's word was law. Let's say, for example, if we were to be ruled by a king, the king could come into this institution and say, I have decided that this building is to be demolished and I want to start a new mall here. Who here could say anything about it? Because at the end of the day, the king's word was law. What was there? There was no constitution. What did he have? A council of advisors, but their powers ended there. Advice, they did. At the end of the day, I still emphasize the king's word or the overall ruler's word was law. For my third point, some of these structures did not consider the people's choice. One of the many benefits of having a modern democratic system of governance is that there is voting. We as the people have a choice to choose who we want as leaders. But these traditional systems or structures did not have democracy. So you might have a ruler from, let's say, and I come back to his point of nepotism. It was only a specific family, let's say the king's family or the king's lineage, that was ruling us. And when it comes to inheritance, you were not guaranteed to have a good leader, because at the end of the day, we have had vicious kings and we have had idiot kings. And you know what we have certainly had? Vicious idiot kings. It is through these that we believe that point or side opposition is the dominant ones in this debate. And we implore you to see this from our perspective or from our point of view and to come over to our side. Thank you.
It is said that you should raise your voice, not your words. It is rain that grows flowers and not thunder. My opponent here is talking about Generation Z, rioting, Generation Z. That is brought by democracy, where we were given the right to vote. And the motion, if I may look at it correctly, it is telling us that we should bring the political structure, the political form of government into the modern form of government. It's like we are doing a combination of these two forms of government. You have said that It will bring tribalism. I'm sorry, but as a history student and as a Kenyan, I don't think we should be bringing about the issue of tribalism. As all of us, we are Kenyans. Is it that right? We are Kenyans and we are patriotic citizens of Kenyans. And we will stand with Kenya, whether you talk of tribalism, whether you talk of nepotism, and I'll stand as a citizen of Kenya. So the issue of tribalism, please, my fellow students. Echoing what my opponents have said, we are just, you know, as a debater, you should be someone who is open-minded. What I've heard of my opposers talking about is just the issue of kings, queens, oh, the kings will do this, the kings will do that. Have you looked at, let's say, the traditional form of system is brought into our modern form of system. Let's talk about of punishment. Do you think there will be something like sort of immorality? You know, in the traditional, there used to be a council of elders where there's a committee where they'll just sit down, think that for this form of punishment and this form of punishment, this and this is the punishment. But in the democratic government is where someone just takes a tomato and then you are arrested. But let's think of it this way. The rules of the tradition are brought and the democracy is also brought in, whereby they say that for this form and this form, your punishment will be like this and this and this. Don't you think that will help us? This system of government will bring trust and legitimacy. Let's say a leader from your community has been elected, like, you know, the way my opponents are taking this point, it's like this form of government is going to be dictatorial. No, it's not going to be dictatorial. It's going to be a monarchical form of government, whereby our leaders will be picked. After being picked, these citizens, you'll have the right to vote. It's like we are bringing it's like we are bringing both those people who are illiterate and literate together to form one country. And that will be acceptable to the people. Talking about legitimacy is something that is acceptable to everyone. And when we bring these two systems of government together, I think these things will be acceptable to each and everyone. It will also reduce the conflict resolution. Let's talk of Uganda and the Acholi. You know, in the traditional system of government, whereby these people, they use the peaceful means of solving conflicts. And in a modern form of government, people use of courts before someone even argues your case out. So as for me, I think that when we bring the traditional system of government and the modern system of government together, we are going to make a good Africa, our motherland, Africa. Thank you.
You know what, Trimpo position? I actually agree with you. You want to know why? Sure. Blending in traditional leadership with modern democracy will enhance legitimacy and participation. Because who wouldn't want their elections influenced by practices from a time when the wheel was considered cutting-edge technology? Who? Second of all, you talked about Botswana having when they integrated this traditional system of leadership with their modern democratic system of leadership, it passed. But you have only given us one of them. I will give you Ghana, Zimbabwe, and Nigeria. That is 3-1. You said something about Ghana when they incorporated it, it actually worked. But did you know that when Ghana actually incorporated this, this led to power struggles and lack of alignment with democratic principles. In Nigeria, it led to lack of accountability mechanisms, and in Zimbabwe, it led to erosion of trust in both traditional and modern institutions. You know, I remember you saying something about that people had trust in these traditional systems of government. But still, let's also consider that in Zimbabwe, when they did try this, it led to erosion of trust in both traditional and modern institutions. And on the issue of, shall I say, tribalism, there was this thing on the issue of tribalism. Tell me how you would expect one, say for example, we take the Kikuyu system of government where they used the Kiama. There is also the Akamba system of government, we are leaving it out. There is also the Luo system of government, we want to leave it out. There is also the Somali system of government, we want to leave it out. Now tell me as a Mkamba, they are using the Kikuyu system of government, which I do not agree with. Do you expect me to just sit there and see as they are using the government that I do not agree with, that will lead to me having hate on this government, and thus they will lead to chaos and power struggles in this country. Furthermore, you said something about them incorporating a jury or something of the sort. Did you know that in Rwanda, they actually tried this after the genocide that happened in Rwanda? They incorporated traditional systems of government known as the gacaca, otherwise known as justice on the grass. Do you know what happened when they incorporated this? What happened was, according to the people who are chosen to actually to look at the cases from the Hutu, what happened was these people had mixed reactions. The Rwandese had mixed reaction to what they wanted to do. Because first of all, why would I want to accuse my neighbor in a community setting? And many potential witnesses were also intimidated to prevent their testimony. Furthermore, while during these trials, it showed that not all Hutu participated in the killings because the courts only reviewed cases with Tutsi victims, ignoring the Hutu victims or the Hutu casualties also incurred in the genocide. Thank you. Furthermore, there is also something you said about... Furthermore, there is the challenge of harmonizing diverse traditional systems with modern democratic frameworks, which will often result in more problems than solution. The confusion over authority and decision-making will lead to governance insufficiencies and marginalization of certain communities. Thank you for your time. It has been Jackie and Mudharia.
You know, there's something that I don't understand. You have not brought out the fact about legitimacy and participation in all of your points. And you're telling me about when we bring the traditional form of government into the modern form of government, you know, there will be participation and legitimacy. You know, like, it should be something that is acceptable to the people. Like, everybody accept this and everybody accept this. You know, you're just basing your points on, oh, tribalism, oh, this, oh, it has failed, oh. We want, like, everybody is participating in this government. Government is... It should be a system of ruling us and controlling us, and we should be the people. Because in Kenya, we are a democratic country, whereby rule of the people, for the people, and by the people, whereby you don't expect that those who are in the rural area, they just have their own small system of government. You in the cities, like you are voting. This is someone who is in the village, this is someone who is somewhere in the rural area, needs someone to be in the government to speak up for them. And as for me, I'll stand with the motion. We should bring the traditional form of government into our modern system of government. Thank you.
You know, I remember that at the start of the debate, the first proposer had asked us that they had a unique name. But I think I have found that name. You know, that name reminds me of a star. Do you know which star I'm talking about? I'm talking about Patrick Star, because they seem to literally be living under a rock. First of all, you have said something about, did you also realize that when Zimbabwe tried to incorporate this traditional system of government, the traditional leaders, such as who are under Robert Mugabe, there was widespread corruption and political manipulation. Furthermore, the traditional leaders were sometimes used to consolidate political powers rather than to serve their community, eroding the trust both in traditional and modern systems of government. Additionally, traditional systems lack accountability and transparency mechanisms in modern democratic structures. For example, in Nigeria, traditional leaders involved in local councils have sometimes faced issues with corruption and ineffective administration. This can lead to conflicts and undermine the effectiveness of governments. Furthermore, I would like to finish with, you guys may be using artificial intelligence to bring out your points, but we are using our brains. Thank you.
On to the remarks. First proposition speaker. I liked how you utilized your time. That was good. Also how you talked about, I need you to talk about how traditional leaders or the leadership structures that was there before or how it looks like, and how the modern structures also look like, and how you're going to be able to implement it. So that's a really big metric that is needed in the debate. To the second speaker, I need you to show us how the trusting of traditional leaders is going to be beneficial to the country. Because this is something, okay, weighing the metric of trust and how opposition brought out their points, it needs to be at par or a bit higher than them. Also good presentation, but you should avoid reading, and maintaining eye contact is beneficial. And also, okay, to the third speaker, there's good rebutting, but I need you to analyze, prove how tribalism in and of itself is not going to be able to exist, considering the factor that it existed before, and how implementing the traditional structures is going to be helpful. There's also good management time, and that's commendable. To the first opposition speaker, good arguments, also saying how the detriments of the traditional structures were, and how it's going to be detrimental when you implement it into the modern structures. Second speaker, good arguments and good giving of examples, but I need you to show us how their systems are going to have, sorry. Can I start? Okay. Yeah, second speaker opposition, good arguments and giving of examples by showing us how bad systems looked before, and how it's going to look like, and how it's going to be detrimental in implementing it into the modern structures. Good style and presentation, and good giving of examples, also the one that you used on the Gen Zs and the rioting. Third speaker, there's good mastery of topic, good examples given. I need you to show us where you're going to, or where you've delivered your statistics from. Don't just throw statistics, because it ends up being like claims, like how sure are we those statistics are up to date. And also good time management. Other than that, I wish you guys all the best.